Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm your host and curator. And I want to start out by thanking all of you for spending two of our precious currencies with us today. The three currencies of attention, time, and money. We're glad that we have your attention and time. Whether you're joining us live, which is always fun because we do record this live with video, or whether you're viewing the YouTube or listening to the podcast, we're glad you're with us today, whenever and wherever that may be. I am going to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors. While Qnity is the producer of this forum, we certainly have some great partners that help make this happen. That includes Lightheart Sanders and also Zenoti. So thanks to both of those companies for being part of this. So we have a very special guest that I'll get to in a little bit here. Prior to that, any light bulb moments of my own, and nothing prepared other than just a reminder that there's something about in-person events that just bring life in all of us. And this is that time of year where me personally and members of the Qnity team are out in a lot of different places, connecting with people, helping to solve problems, learning, giving, etc. And that's always fun. We were part of the Zenoti conference last week as presenters, and then also exhibitors as by way of a partnership with them. Erin has been several different places in the last few weeks. I believe she just did a program in Italy with Davines. And we have more good stuff coming up in her coiffures this weekend. Then, of course, we have the 2 to 10 conference coming up, which is our very own. It's coming up soon. So anyway, it's just a reminder that there's just something about connecting in person with people at these events that opens up certain doors. And so a big fan of conferences and a big fan of events, whether we're sponsoring them, attending them. So I guess that's my light bulb moment, because there's always great opportunities to connect with people. It was at some recent events that I was able to connect with this gentleman that I'm now going to invite to the mic and the screen here. Reuben, how are you?
Good morning. I'm great, Tom. How are you?
And you are down in San Antonio, Texas today. Is that correct?
I am calling you from sunny, humid, and warm San Antonio.
Well, Reuben, you're what's known as a legend, and
Ugh.
I'm not going to embarrass you because one of the first words when I describe Reuben is humble. And so I realized that creates an awkward moment when I brag about your accolades, which I'm going to do unapologetically, even if you don't like it. So let me at least give our group a rundown of your background, okay?
Okay.
Because not everybody has had the privilege to know you and the impact that you make and have made. So currently a group CEO of, I'm going to pronounce this right, it's Bansk, I think, Beauty, and
Correct.
member of the board of directors for 3 hair care companies. One company is not enough for Reuben. So it's Amika, it's Eva New York, and Ethique. 24-year veteran of Procter & Gamble, Reuben held leadership roles managing multi-billion-dollar brands like Pantene, Olay, CoverGirl, accounting for $9 billion in retail sales. Following the acquisition of Clairol and Wella, Reuben was appointed the North American CEO for Wella Professionals, where he led the restructure of the business and the integrated organization of the Graham Webb, Clairol Professional, Nioxin, Sebastian, and Wella Professional brands. He later became a partner at Luxury Brand Partners in 2014, leading the launch and international expansion of R&Co, and contributed to the sale of several iconic brands, including Olay, Becca Cosmetics, and Pulp Bride Hair Color. 2019, Reuben was appointed president of Olaplex, where he spearheaded infrastructure growth and helped position the brand for sale to Advent International. 2019, I'm almost done, everybody. He joined Unilever Prestige as CEO of Kate Somerville Skin Health Experts, driving over 70% growth and leading international expansion. In July of 2022, Reuben was named CEO of the Amika and Eva New York hair care brands. After the acquisition by the private equity firm Bansk, it was named Group CEO with the addition of Ethique, into his responsibilities, a pioneer in sustainable lifestyle branding. I need a breath after reading that.
I need a nap. You did an incredible job, Tom. Thank you.
I think we have to do that to provide justice to a career like yours. Not bad for a guy that grew up in Tucson, Arizona, as a fourth generation member of the beauty industry. So tell us a little bit about your story going back a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I was I proud native of Tucson, Arizona, grew up in Tucson, fourth generation. We used to joke that my family's uh great grandparents were ranchers in that valley when it was still part of Mexico before the Gadsden Purchase. Grew up there. I've come from a family of hairdressers, actually. My mom was a working hairdresser for 40 years behind the chair. Her sister, my godmother, was also a 45-year veteran, and a number of my cousins were salon owners and hairdressers. And I think there's the fourth generation that are still working. And I have a cousin who's working with some of my favorite people in Tucson at the Gadabouts with Jana and team at Gadabout. So yeah, I have been kind of grew up washing perm rods, folding towels, and sweeping hair.
And look at what you're doing now, man. I mean, this is incredible. So, to do it at this scale, and, I mean, so the way I describe you, Reuben, I told this to yourself, I think of a guy that's humble, accomplished, a giver. That's actually where we met each other. Beauty changes lives, and a lot of the work that you did with that organization is incredible. You also are someone that has roots in the industry. So, but as I get to know you more, I mean, you're no one's fool. You're a smart guy. You have to be a pretty smart guy to be dealing with these private equity folks. What's it like to be the guy in the room, really, to a respect? I think you used the word translator. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I had vehemently resisted moving into that environment, right? So I started in big CPG, got great training ground, went in and did the holding your breath, becoming an entrepreneur, and was able to do that. But when this opportunity came, it was interesting for me because it's led by individuals who are brand builders. So the chairman was the gentleman who was the CEO of Reckitt Benckiser. He was at Coty. So there's a culture of focusing on the brands and the brand stories and the brand building versus just an asset with a timeline for liquidation. So that was the reason I jumped in. Private equity, it's a whole world, right? You've got lending partners and institutional partners and family offices, right? And so everyone, that's a whole area that I had never had the opportunity to navigate. And it's been quite the thing, right? I think similar to any other business, right? You have to show value very quickly, right? So the benefits of a 30, 60, 90-day plan where you're showing the metrics and the organizational acceleration and the business acceleration, that's kind of stable take stakes. But what's been interesting, and I think for us in the beauty world, right? I mean, my gosh, between COVID and now the tariffs and the consolidations and distributors buying distributors and retailers going into partnerships and not going into partnerships, the world that I joined in beauty in 2009 before I went into pro has had so many iterations. And I think everyone here, what you and I talked about that is if you've been in beauty for a while, regardless of whether it's pro or retail, whatever, we've lived 3 or 4 lifetimes. And sometimes it's that dynamic isn't lost. What's been interesting for me is, and I think for all of us is, in the world of finance, right? I was at a JP Morgan, on stage at JP Morgan, and of all of the categories of discussion, the ones that were getting the most interest were the beauty categories, right? I think we are blessed and fortunate enough to work in businesses that make people's lives better every single day through the services that are provided with licensed professionals and the products that you have a chance to interface with on a daily basis, right? They're part of your shower routine, they're part of your washing routine, they're part of your special occasions, right? They're also part of your pick-me-ups. So there's a lot of interest in the finance world on the beauty consumer, the beauty world, the beauty environment. with all of the stuff that's also been happening, it's been interesting. I've gotten pulled in to a lot of conversations by the private equity partners with the lending institutions because what they want to hear, they don't want to hear from the bankers, they don't want to hear from the private equity people. They want to hear from the operators. What's really going on with tariffs? What's going on with consolidation? Ulta's exiting Target. What's the real story behind that? So it's the interest level around what's happening in our industry and with our consumers is very, very high, especially in those environments where people are looking to deploy capital and to deploy capital in an area and in a vertical where there is a return on investment that looks positive.
I think that's a super compelling thought and a super compelling trend insight that isn't necessarily brought to any of our communities. And so if I can translate what you said, and it doesn't require translation because you said it very well, but if I can summarize it, is the capital markets are bullish on beauty.
Yes.
How does that translate to, so we have listeners that tuning in that are either vendors that support salons and spas or schools, or they're salon and spa owners, or they're beauty brands. Why is that important to that audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, it's important because, and I'm going to do a bit of like kind of a slight pivot to tell you why I'm making the comment. Had had someone told the Reuben Carranza, who just was a working musician to pay for my tuition to get my college degree in marketing, that at some point I would be leading beauty companies, I would have told you were smoking dope. There is no way that's going to happen. That was never on my mood board, right? Like my job, that was never it. But when I reflect on the experiences that I've had and the ability to be where I'm at today, it's because I've been a learner. And I would say, and I think that's such an important element of for anyone, right? You want to be learning. For us in the beauty businesses, that's incredibly important as well, because if you're not learning, you're not keeping up with what's happening with the client who's sitting in the chair or that consumer who's going into a retail outlet. And some of the pivots and the navigation that we are all having to do as we are in this beauty ecosystem, there's no playbook around what's about to happen. Things are happening faster and faster, and the conversions are happening. So you've got to be a student and be open to knowing that you don't know everything, and you have to surround yourself with people who can help challenge your thinking, and you have to be open to the learning, right? And so the reason I say that is our business, our beauty business, I think will continue to be one of those businesses that just has such a stickiness when it comes to the consumer. I can make a choice whether I'm going to go buy a new refrigerator or not. I can make a choice whether I'm going to take a trip or not. But when I find that perfect product that makes me feel great in the morning, or when I step out of a salon and I've got an incredible new haircut, or an incredible manicure, or I've gotten a facial that just makes me transformed, those are those experiences that are more they're limbic. Those aren't just top line experiences, and that's the businesses that we're in, right? I always talk about this when I was with PBA, and we were lobbying at the federal level to try to get reciprocity on licensing and try to continue to maintain, scholarships for people who wanted to go into beauty school. The beauty industry, we touch more people on a daily basis than any other profession in the country. More than doctors, more than nurses, more than therapists, because we are, a million plus licensed professionals. Those services are happening. You can't do those with an AI robot. You're doing those in real time. And so the stickiness of what we're a part of, whether you're on the manufacturing side, whether you're on the service side, the owner side, the school side, we're in a business that will continue to have a role. How that role evolves is the exciting part if you can get your mind wrapped around that things are going to change.
All right, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to
Yeah.
piggyback on a couple things here. So, asking you the question, like the capital markets are bullish on beauty, which I'm going to interpret that in a different way. And part of it's on a lens of a guy that in about an hour and 3/4 is going to do a webinar on succession planning. So I think it's important for all the reasons you mentioned, it's also important to understand that there is a viable opportunity for salons to succeed from one generation to another. And if that's a really big tie, I don't even know if you knew that, but we do a lot of work in succession planning. So
Yeah,
I like hearing the capital markets are bullish on beauty
right.
for that. The other thing you said that you got into this thing about learning, and essentially what you're just prescribing is lifelong learning, and you're a lifelong learner, and I think that I share that fascination with you. I'm going to give you an insight from a guy that in the first 13 years of my career was an accountant.
Ooh,
And I remember going to getting CPE credits, continuing professional education.
yeah.
All of us hated it. They would sort of force us to do it over lunch and bring in food because people just hated the continuing education. Then I go into the beauty industry. I'm like, whoa, these guys like to learn. I mean, they cannot get enough education. It really was a huge attraction to me, the very beginning of my career, to see that huge dichotomy between an organization, a field where there was resentment about continuing education versus a massive craving. And here we are today in the business that provides education and training. So
Powerful, powerful.
you and I got into something yesterday that was a really interesting conversation. And you may not know this, but it continued overnight and into this morning into another
Ooh,
conversation. You talked about the industry sometimes having a need for a pep talk. Let's
yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was so great for you and I to just be able to have that chat yesterday. And I think for the benefit of the audience, I think what we were talking about, right, as we were talking about not just the speed of what's been happening in the business environment, but the speed that's happening with consumers, and then all of the things that we've all weathered in the last kind of decade between COVID and tariffs and all of those things. I just kind of said, we're tired. If you're not tired, if you're in the industry, if you're not some days just going, oh my God, what else can happen? Then you're probably not engaged, right? And what I was sharing with you is that it can get very easy to fixate on all of the things that are in front of us, all of the things we're having to rework, the counseling you're having to do with your teams or your individuals. That can be incredibly draining. And I have made it a practice, and I'm now doing that with my colleagues and my leadership team around taking opportunities to just give each other the pep talk. And it's not the Pollyanna-ish thing, right? That's fake. But when you step back and again, and you think about what we're talking about, we're working in an industry that has a lot of positive viewpoints to it from a capital standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, et cetera. We make people's lives better. We make it through the products, through the services, and we make transformations happen. And sometimes we lose sight of that. So it's important for us to have the pep talk that I like to talk about is you're not working in the oil industry. Nothing wrong with it. People make great livings at that, but we're not going and pulling stuff out of the earth. We're actually changing people's lives. We're creating experiences that make people feel great, right? And there's something important about that. There's a reason that we all try to do that. So we got to remind ourselves of that. We also have to remind ourselves that if an industry is seeing a lot of change, it's because it is top of mind for consumers. And ultimately, we have to resist the urge to get into our own myopic thinking and our own myopic echo chambers and step outside a little bit and say, what are people talking about? What's happening? Where are things going? And that pep talk, when you start to do that and look at our industry through lenses of people we don't normally talk to about, what you start to find is, oh my gosh, there are things happening. There are green shoots being pioneered in ways that are very different that I never would have thought of. If you had told me 6 months ago that I would be going down a TikTok earth hole every night, I would have told you, why am I going to do that? My gosh, some of the stuff I'm like, what are these people talking about? But some of the conversation, some of the content is so good. Stuff, Substack, some of those channels where the conversations are happening, just reminds you that we're in a really dynamic business, and sometimes we just have to remind ourselves that is the case.
So I said to you, so how does the person giving the pep talk get permission to get a pep talk for themselves? Do you ever need a pep talk?
Every day. Every day. Yeah, every day.
So I said to
Um,
you yesterday, I says, Reuben, I need a pep talk. I mean,
yeah.
I'm fine, but I'm out there giving a lot of other people pep talks. But yeah, some of these challenges that, our customers work with have an impact on us. It drags us down to see suffering, et cetera. So I said, give me a pep talk, so you gave me a little pep talk, and I'm fine, everybody. It's just, it's nice to get a pep talk now and then, but you need a pep talk. Where do you get your pep talks from?
Yeah, you know what's funny, Tom? When you and I did that yesterday, when we kind of had our thing, I felt great too. And here's what I would say: I am not a therapist, and I'm not any kind of guru on this, but it's I'm fortunate enough to have great people in my life, and I have an incredible spouse, and we have an incredible way of communicating. So I think to me, it's all goes back to kind of the golden rule and how you think about a great relationship. Sometimes you just need to say, I need to vent, and having someone hear it and allow you to say it is enough. Sometimes you need to have your what I call your trusted posse, your group of people who you can be real with, who you know won't judge you, but will also give you the harsh feedback. And I have my group of people like that. Who I'm like, hey, I need a venting moment. I will talk it, and they'll be like, okay, now if you feel like I have one of my cousins actually, and she's a salon owner, and trust me, she was a Wella salon owner when I first came into Wella, and Wella was 50% out of stocks. And you better believe she was calling me and saying, "What the hell are you doing? You're killing my business," right? So she gives me the real feedback, and she's perfect because sometimes when I'm feeling sorry for myself and I need to talk to her, she'll like, "Okay, I hear you," and she's like, "Okay, you've got a legitimate issue," or she'll say, "You need to just, get over it." But my point is, you need you need to be thinking about who do you have that's able to do that. And then for me personally, I regenerate when I get my hands in the soil. So if it's a particularly draining day, I know that I got to get my hands in the soil. Whether that's put my hands in a pot, go out and pull weeds. If I'm on a business trip, I'll go out to a hotel parking lot and kind of sit amongst the trees. But for me, that is the way that I know that I kind of get connected.
Literally hands in dirt, soil, et cetera, not like figuratively speaking.
Correct. Correct.
Wow, wow. All right, so here's what you don't know. So this morning I said, I thought of someone in Eastern time zone. So I sent a text saying the following: Hello, stranger. I need a pep talk. Are you around in the next few days for a short chat? Okay. So I just did that this morning. So I sent it to the one and only, your friend too, Candy Shaw.
Oh, my candy. Yes.
I'm like, if next few days, she calls me right now. And so her and I were on for about half an hour this morning. We each gave each other a little pep talk, and I just thought it was hilarious. She loves you, by the way. I couldn't keep the notes of her accolades on you. She just thinks you're the bomb. But I think we're onto something like that. I might do a pep talk series, Reuben. I mean, you might have
I
launched a
love it.
new series that's called Pep Talks. And I already talked to you about generational planning and people looking at their succession plan, whatever. So we do have an aging population of salon professionals, and sometimes the next generation, all generations need pep talks, right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
just the up and coming generation. So I really love that part of what we spoke about yesterday. I thought that was super impactful. And anybody put in the chat, if you need a pep talk, just put it in there. All right.
I love that. Hey, Kevin, Tom, can I just make one other comment related to that? This is the reason why I would never leave our industry. And it's because our industry inherently is about people who, when you need help, you raise your hand and people will do it. I mean, we support each other in that way. And that this is an incredible industry in that regard.
Hmm.
It's also an industry, to your point. If you are not a good person, if you are underhanded, if you don't do the right thing, people know quickly and and you don't survive. So I love that too.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I know for you, having grown up in the industry and seen your mom, touch so many different people, you really talk about brand loyalty that occurs between a licensed professional and a consumer. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I'm happy. So I think I was sharing the story with you. So so I went to the university and I got a marketing degree, and then I started at P&G, and it was about 12 years in when I would then was moved. I was able to again move into the retail part of P&G Beauty, and all the acquisitions happened on the pro side. And I was North American retail market strategy and planning leader. I'm at a global meeting and they had acquired Clairol, then they had acquired Wella for the retail box businesses, right? And they've got these professional businesses that are on the side. And they were in the process of integrating Wella, but then the company acquired Gillette, and Gillette was a much bigger acquisition, so everything stopped. Well, that was mid supply chain transition for Wella and Clairol, which meant that they were running 50% out of stocks, right, on color. And I'm on the retail side. And that's where my cousin Anna was calling me and was like, "You're killing my business." I'm like, "I'm on the retail side of the business. I have nothing to do with pro." She's like, "You're at P&G and you're in beauty. You're killing my business." Right. So I'm at a global meeting, and the global head of beauty, Susan Arnold, who I had worked for before, I went up to Susan, and she's a Pittsburgh native. She likes it straight in the face. I said, "Cindy, you guys are really fucking up the Wella business." And she stopped. She's like, what are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you're running these kind of out of stocks. Here's what's going on." And she's like, "Wait, you're on the retail side of the business. How do you know about this?" "Well, I grew from family hairdressers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have relatives that are Wella customer salon owners, and they're calling me about this." And she's like, "Oh, okay, 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 okay." And she's like, "Well, make sure you're talking to a couple of people, right?" And she goes, "Would you ever go in that business?" Now, in the P&G world, right, where it's up or out, everyone is thinking about, what job do I get that gets me promoted to the next level, that then gets me promoted to the next level? Anything that's an acquisition, anything that's outside of the norm is like, ooh, that's risky. And I made my career at those things because I love the murky stuff, right? So I said to Susan, "Absolutely." And she said, "Well, why?" And I said, "I'm a marketer. We build brand loyalty." And let me tell you about my mom. My mom had clients who were her clients before she got married. Those clients came to my high school graduation. Those clients had in their wills that they wanted her to do their hair at the funeral parlor. If that isn't a profession and an industry that builds lifetime loyalty, nothing is. And by the way, our brands need to understand what hairdressers do to build lifetime loyalty. She was like, "Hey, I didn't expect that answer." 3 days later, she called me and she said, "I need you in LA. You're the new North American CEO for Wella." I share that story because that is the profession, that's the industry that we have the benefit and the ability to be a part of. And that's what we also can't forget, is that it's people, it's relationships, it's trust. It's not just product, right? That we're using.
Hmm. Where do you see some trends that would be maybe unexpected or things that wouldn't be the obvious, like for example, AI? Any trends that you think are worth discussing briefly?
Yeah, I mean, I think the consumer and the educated consumer will continue to be a dynamic that we all need to be keeping a pulse on. Sometimes the education is not the right education, so I think there's always going to be a need for us to be able to talk to the consumer in an educated way about beauty and beauty products, etc. I think AI, there's a lot of myths on AI, and I'm on my AI learning journey as well. What I will continue to say is AI's magic will be in building more capacity and capability and not replacing. In certain areas, it will replace work, but those are going to be a kind of repetitive kinds of things. I think at the end of the day, AI is only as good as the questions that you're asking it. And you can only ask good questions if you've got an understanding of what it is you're trying to understand. So I think AI, if you think about AI from an enabling standpoint, I think that will unlock the way to leverage that as a technology. I'm fascinated with what's happening on the ingredient and manufacturing front. There are so many cross conversations that are happening between wellness and beauty. We were always talking about the skinification of hair and what's happening now. But if you're starting to think about things like anti-inflammatory, and what that could do to the derma, and what that does to skin barrier health, and what that also starts to do to follicle growth. I mean, this whole environment that we're in related to ingredients and what's happening with these cross pollinizations, I think is really, really exciting. And I think will lend itself to new trends in terms of not only services, but what are we offering in salons, right? Is our salons just really about beauty, or is it about holistic health? I think the consumer's going to tell us what they want and how they do it. And they trust us when they're going in to get chemical products on their head to be able to change their hair color. That trust, I think, is unexploited, and I think will be an opportunity as some of these trends, these merging of trends and products start to need a home, right?
Gotcha. So, right. So don't forget this. You received here, I'm going to put you on the spot again, and you're going to get all red. But you were the recipient of a major award at the Beauty Changes Lives Gala. And why don't you describe that award and why you think you won the award?
Oh my gosh, Tom, I was it was such an incredible honor to be able to be awarded that legacy award by Beauty Changes Lives. And I think it was, it's funny. I give all of the credit to Linnell Lynch, and to the Beauty Changes Lives board. When I came into Wella, my God, a couple decades ago, Linnell had just taken over and was leading her school businesses. And I remember and they were a Wella school, and so I remember she got time on my calendar. She came in and sat in my office, and she said, we need to do something about education and supporting professional education. And this Beauty Changes Lives. There had been a couple of activations that had happened. Folks like Fabio Sementelli, who was playing an incredibly big role, and Ted Gibson and Jason Baki and some of those folks. So she said, but we've got to elevate this thing. You're a P&G guy. You know what that means. We've got to become the milk of the beauty industry. And that started a conversation. I think she was surprised that I said, I could not agree with you more, Linnell. How do we do this? How do we get this going? So I remember I called up my good friend Colin Walsh, who was running Matrix, and everybody thought, oh, P&G and L'Oreal, you guys hate each other. Colin and I are buddies. We were so shared in our vision and how we approach the industry. So I called Colin. I said, dude, we need to I need you to rally the L'Oreal people. Like, we need to come together. We need to really do some things related to Beauty Changes Lives. Jan Arnold is an icon in the nail industry, and so Jan was on board. And we had a few others that joined in, but it started with that. And it was, how do we elevate the perception of careers in beauty? And I remember I said to Linnell and the team, at the time, P&G, there were 80,000 employees globally with P&G. There were 237 roles that no matter what your educational credentials were, whether you had one PhD or 100, you couldn't get the job unless you had a license as a licensed professional, because it was product development testing in the pro world. And I said, this is one of the biggest consumer products companies in the world, and there are roles that only people who get a license can actually be qualified for. That speaks to the breadth of opportunities, right, in our industry. So we started that process. We said, now we need to raise money. So we have scholarships so that those become less of a barrier. And I was very fortunate that I was able to get the first 7-figure endowment. So I was able to literally at the 11th, there's a whole thing that Linnell and I can tell about the story about this happened. But I said, Linnell, I'm going to a meeting in Cincinnati. It's the end of the year kind of a thing. I'm going to try to get us some money. I called her. We thought we were going to get 100,000 to do an endowment. I called her. I said, Linnell, I got you a number, but it's not what I told you it was going to be. And she's like, okay, what is it? And I said, I got us 1,700,000 to honor the Dal Sassoon as a part of the Sassoon piece. And I just remember like the yelp and the scream. But my point is, I was very humbled that I think the boards recognized that was one of the early stages of starting the journey. And when you think about what Beauty Changes Lives is doing today, it's elevating the discussion around careers in beauty. And whether you're a professional behind the chair, you're running the business, you're on the manufacturing side, you're a vendor that's working with the business, but it also, and more importantly, is helping enable a pathway for people to get into our profession, because we need that. So I was very humbled by that, and looking very much forward to next year's gala, because I think there's going to be some incredible momentum on that as well.
Yeah, you are very humble. You are very humble. It's a remarkable body of work. All right, everybody, let's give Reuben a virtual round of applause. Give him a little shout out in the chat if you can. So Reuben, that does mean that you will become a member of the Brain Trust, and you have $1 million coming your way. And I've already invited you, and Team Cunity, he's already confirmed. So send him a save the date for the 5th annual celebration of Lightbulb Moments, which Reuben's just right up the street from you. So we're so pleased that you're going to be able to join us on that Monday night and share some of your charisma and humility and great accomplishments. So thanks for joining us. It's taken a little bit here. I see at these events, we text each other, and this and that, but here we did it. I guess I'll see you in November at the PBA Executive Summit. Will you be there?
You absolutely will. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of folks, and thank you for the invitation, Tom. And I love what you guys are doing with Cunity, and so keep doing it. We need it.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. All right, the rest of you, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in an upcoming episode. Bye now.